Khankhuuluu is one of the most remarkable theropod discoveries from Mongolia. A dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous, more than 70 million years ago. While not as famous as Tyrannosaurus rex or Tarbosaurus, its evolutionary importance is immense. It represents a transitional predator, an animal that carried traits of both its smaller, earlier tyrannosauroid ancestors and its gigantic descendants. By examining its bones, paleontologists can trace how tyrannosaurs gradually transformed into the top predators of their time. The Gobi Desert, barren today, was once a vibrant ecosystem filled with streams, wetlands, and lush floodplains. In this world, Khankhuuluu hunted among herds of Protoceratops, duck-billed hadrosaurs, and colonies of oviraptorosaurs. It was not the largest predator, but its skull, teeth, and limbs show a blueprint of the power that would later define the Tyrannosaur Dynasty. Khankhuuluu embodies a critical moment in evolutionary history, the stage where tyrannosaurs shifted from moderately sized hunters into rulers of the Cretaceous. Its story demonstrates that natural selection does not create giants overnight. Instead, it crafts them step by step, leaving behind transitional species like Khankhuuluu as milestones on the path to dominance. The remains of Khankhuuluu were discovered in the Nemegt formation of the Gobi Desert, one of the richest dinosaur fossil beds in the world. This formation has produced iconic species such as Velociraptor, Tarbosaurus, and Protoceratops. In the 21st century, a joint team of Mongolian and international paleontologists uncovered a partial skeleton that included fragments of the skull, jaw, vertebrae, and limb bones. The fossils immediately stood out. The skull bones had an unusual mix of primitive and advanced features. The snout was long and slender, resembling early tyrannosauroids like Guanlong and Dilong from China. Yet, the back of the skull showed reinforced bones and deep muscle attachment sites, foreshadowing the immense bite strength of giant tyrannosaurids. This mosaic of traits signaled that Khankhuuluu was an evolutionary bridge, a missing piece of the tyrannosaur puzzle. The name Khankhuuluu honors Mongolian heritage, reflecting the country's proud contribution to paleontology for decades. The Gobi Desert has yielded spectacular finds, and Khankhuuluu added another jewel to that crown. Though its skeleton is incomplete, the preserved parts provide enough detail for scientists to reconstruct its role in the ecosystem and its position on the Tyrannosaur family tree. Khankhuuluu's skull is one of its most fascinating features. At first glance, it appears elongated, with a narrow snout more similar to primitive tyrannosaurs. But closer inspection reveals thickened bones in the posterior region of the skull, a feature that allowed powerful jaw muscles to anchor securely. This adaptation foreshadowed the bone-crushing skulls of Tarbosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex. Its teeth were recurved, blade-like, and serrated classic meat-slicing tools. While not as massive as the banana-shaped teeth of Tumch rex, they were already designed for efficient flesh consumption. Computer models of jaw mechanics suggest Khankhuuluu could deliver a bite stronger than most predators of its size. This indicates a shift in evolutionary strategy, using the skull as the primary weapon rather than relying heavily on forelimbs. Some paleontologists hypothesize that Khankhuuluu's bite could have been strong enough to puncture bone, though not to the extreme level seen in Tum rex. Still, this intermediate strength shows that the lineage was already moving toward hypercarnivory. Every ridge and socket in the skull tells the story of a predator whose head was becoming a lethal instrument. One step closer to the crushing force of the great tyrannosaurs, unlike the stubby, two-fingered arms of Tarbosaurus or Tyrannosaurus rex. Khankhuuluu retained longer, three-fingered forelimbs. These arms were still muscular and mobile, with a strong grasping ability. Fossil evidence suggests that its hands were capable of flexing inward, meaning it could seize and hold prey, something later tyrannosaurs could no longer do effectively. This transitional anatomy shows that the reduction of arms in tyrannosaurs was gradual. Khankhuuluu represents a stage where the forelimbs were still functional, but the evolutionary emphasis was already shifting toward the skull and jaws. The arms were becoming secondary, while the head became the primary killing tool. Imagine Khankhuuluu ambushing a juvenile hadrosaur. It could grasp the struggling prey with its hands, stabilize it, and then deliver repeated bites to finish the kill. Over millions of years, as skulls became stronger and bites more lethal, arms became unnecessary. Khankhuuluu demonstrates this balance point in evolution, where both arms and skull worked in tandem. But the future was clearly written in its anatomy. Jaws would soon dominate completely. Khankhuuluu's hind limbs reveal another key part of its lifestyle. Its legs were proportionally long, suggesting adaptations for speed. Yet, they were also robust, indicating strength. This dual adaptation meant Khankhuuluu was likely capable of both running down prey and overpowering it once caught. Compared to the heavier Tarbosaurus, Khankhuuluu was more agile. It probably relied on short bursts of pursuit, chasing down small to medium herbivores across sandy floodplains. Its muscular thighs suggest explosive acceleration, while lighter lower limbs indicate it could maintain speed long enough to close the gap. Some scientists suggest Khankhuuluu might have used a hunting style similar to modern big cats, stalking quietly and then sprinting for a decisive capture. Unlike raptors, which hunted in coordinated packs, Khankhuuluu seems to have been a solitary predator. Its combination of speed and growing bite force allowed it to dominate a niche between small pack hunters and the massive apex predators. This versatility was key to its survival in the competitive Nemegt ecosystem. The Gobi Desert during the late Cretaceous was a land of contrasts. Seasonal floods nourished river valleys, creating lush pockets of vegetation where dinosaurs thrived. Protoceratops herds grazed on ferns and shrubs. Duck-billed hadrosaurs moved in groups, foraging along waterways. Oviraptorids nested in colonies, protecting their eggs from scavengers. Into this world stepped Khankhuuluu, a predator that had to balance risk and reward. Velociraptors competed for similar prey, often attacking in packs. Tarbosaurus towered as the apex predator, capable of taking down the largest hadrosaurs and sauropods. Khankhuuluu had to carve out its own role, preying on animals too large for raptors, but too small to interest Tarbosaurus. Picture a scene: a juvenile hadrosaur strays too far from the herd. Khankhuuluu, hidden in low vegetation, charges with explosive speed. Its grasping arms seize the prey, and its developing jaws deliver fatal bites. This hunting strategy reflects its transitional anatomy, an evolutionary experiment halfway between agility and brute force. Khankhuuluu lived alongside and famous predators such as Velociraptor and Tarbosaurus, but it occupied a unique position in the food web. Velociraptor, small but deadly, relied on pack tactics and razor-sharp claws. Tarbosaurus, massive and bone-crushing, was the undisputed apex predator. Khankhuuluu was neither as small nor as gigantic. It was a mid-tier predator that balanced traits from both extremes. This made it ecologically important. By hunting mid-sized prey, Khankhuuluu reduced competition between smaller raptors and giant tyrannosaurids. Evolutionarily, its skeleton reveals close ties to Tarbosaurus, showing how Mongolian tyrannosaurs diversified before producing true apex giants. Comparisons with relatives like Dilong and Yutyrannus from China reveal the bigger picture. Dilong was feathered and small. Yutyrannus was much larger and covered in primitive feathers, and Tarbosaurus was enormous with reduced arms. Khankhuuluu fits squarely in the middle of this evolutionary chain. It proves that Asia was the birthplace of tyrannosaur diversity, with Mongolia as one of its most important evolutionary laboratories. The discovery of Khankhuuluu has changed how scientists understand tyrannosaur evolution. For decades, paleontologists debated whether tyrannosaurs rapidly evolved into giants or gradually accumulated adaptations.